Eers and Beers, episode 58. What's on tap? JT Daniels is officially a Mountaineer. We got to laugh at Pitt as they share in our pain here a little bit. I want to talk dream conferences. And Emmitt Matthews is also back in the old gold and blue. But first, as always, I'm Wesley Uhler, one half of the Eers and Beers podcast. What are we drinking? I'm drinking a Bell's Two Hearted Ale today. Not a huge IPA guy, honestly, but this is one of the ones that I do like. So, Prost. Maybe. There we go. Salute. So JT Daniels is officially a Mountaineer. It was all officially unofficial up until Tuesday, May 3rd, right? But announced by WVU Football today, this morning, that JT Daniels signed, sealed, delivered. It is official, and you got to be excited. We were obviously excited when we heard the news that JT was coming to Morgantown. I did an emergency podcast, right? We sang the JT Daniels song. But realistically now, as it is tangible and as it has actually happened, I just keep coming back to this. And that's that, over Neal Brown's 3 years in Morgantown, the biggest things that the program has needed, right? So Neal Brown's 3 years. And if you disagree with me on this, I'd be interested to hear your take. But to me, the two biggest things that Neal Brown has needed over his 3-year tenure as a Power 5 head coach at WVU have been a quarterback, a Power 5 quarterback, and a proper offensive coordinator. Well, now Neal Brown has both. A few months ago, the program is able to attract Graham Harrell and hire him, coming from the West Coast in his time at USC over to the Mountain State. I shared with you guys here on the podcast before how Neal Brown had to make some concessions of his own from a money standpoint to lock up Graham Harrell. There was some back and forth between Neal and Shane Lyons. Neal pushed some money that he was owed down the road so that they could give that money to Graham Harrell and make sure they secured his signature. So you got to love that from Neal Brown, the realization that he needed this, and by this I mean Graham Harrell, obviously, and him literally putting his money where his mouth is and deferring some contract money that he was owed, some bonus money, retention money that he was owed, and saying, yeah, take that, put that into Graham's contract, and let's get this thing signed, sealed, and delivered. So he got his offensive coordinator a few months ago, and while we're all, I think, very high on Nico Marchiol, and why I've shared personally, I'm high on Will Goose Crowder as well, too, this is the quarterback that you needed. While we love the upside that Goose and Nico have, your chances of beating Pitt September 1st at Heinz Field with one of those two young guys making their first ever career college start was pretty low. Now you get JT Daniels, who's played at USC, who's played at Georgia, in the Pac-12, in the SEC, 7-0 at Georgia, he was. You got your quarterback, experienced, 5-star guy, right? And you got your offensive coordinator, one of the up-and-coming hot names in terms of that position in college football. Those were the two biggest things Neal Brown needed, and you got them. Now I think it's reasonable. Like, this is all an expectation raiser. Not like a razor like you shave your face with. Razor, like raise the roof. I don't think realistically, if you were coming into this season with Nico or with Goose or even with Garrett Green, I think your best hope was this team could find a way to win 7 or 8 games, but they're going to have to play good football down the stretch. And they did that last year. They went 4-2 in their last 6 games last year. But I don't think there was ever going to be the potential for a 9 or 10 win season when you're starting a true freshman or when you're starting, again, all 3 of these guys who have never started a Power 5 football game. Yeah, Garrett Green's got a little more experience than the other 2, certainly, but they've never been the guy at a Power 5 program. They're all still relatively young in the tooth and certainly inexperienced. You got an experienced quarterback with a lot of pedigree. You've got an up-and-coming offensive coordinator with a lot of pedigree. Now I think it's fair to raise those expectations. It feels now like 7 wins is the absolute minimum. Anything less than that, 5 or 6 wins again, and there's going to be some serious questions asked about Neal Brown's future, rightfully so. I think now probably the over-under for me is 8. If you tell me right now this team goes 8-4 this year, I don't think that's That's not blowing me away. I'm not jumping up and down with happiness and fist pumping, but I also think that would be a pretty decent season. But I absolutely think that it's not unrealistic for this team to maybe even win 9 games. They were 6-6 last year in the regular season. In all respect to Jarrett Daggy, hey, he played his heart out and he took a lot of crap from this fan base that he didn't deserve. But if you've got a JT Daniels type quarterback last year, I think that this team easily goes 8-4 instead of 6-6. You beat Maryland. You beat Oklahoma probably. That's 2 wins right there. Yeah, you weren't going to beat Baylor. They just smoked you. And maybe you get Texas Tech at home. Game that the Red Raiders won at the wire down the end. I think it's very realistic to say that if JT Daniels was on the roster and healthy last year, this team would have been 8-4, maybe even 9-3. So if the defense can continue to be the solid unit that they have been throughout the Neil Brown era, if the offensive line, all 5 of those guys back can take a step forward, if you've got a solid run game, you've still got enough on the outside in terms of Bryce Ford-Wheaton and Reese Smith and Caden Prather, there's talent there. The pieces that you needed, quarterback and offensive coordinator, you got both now. Now it's time to raise the expectations a little bit. I'm not saying I expect us to go 11-1 and be playing in the Big 12 championship game, but it certainly should be noticeably better than last year. I think particularly, listen, it might take a little time. You got a new offensive coordinator, you got a new quarterback, and I don't want to say that. I don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that when the first game is September 1st in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field against those stinking Pitt Panthers. And we want this to happen pretty quickly, right? It might take a couple weeks to come together, but I think by the time we hit October, this offense should be humming. And if they are, and the defense is playing the same way that they have over the last 2 years, this is a team that can certainly win 8 or 9 games and play meaningful football down the stretch. So, JT Daniels officially signed, sealed, delivered. Hard not to be excited about that one. Rough week for the Pitt Panthers. Jordan Addison going to USC. Lincoln Riley, some tampering, some NIL, some portal money, baby. And you got to compartmentalize this in 2 different ways. One as a college football fan and one as a WVU fan. As a college football fan, obviously, I hate it. It's a lot of what we've talked about. It's the same thing that Benedict Adai has done to our program, right? We've had guys poached away, tampered away. Akeem Messidor being the most recent example. We've lost guys to Georgia and Miami and LSU when there were no signs that these guys were even thinking about transferring, and all of a sudden they were gone. So as a college football fan, yeah, I hate it. But as a Mountaineer who's been born and raised in Pittsburgh my entire life and had to grow up around all those heathens and has heard 13-9 jokes every day of my life since I was 16 years old, F Pitt, F Narduzzi, F that program. Good for you, Jordan Addison. Go get paid, young man. But it's the same conversation. It's funny now because Pitt fans were laughing at us over these past couple weeks, and now we're laughing at them. But it's the same conversation about how right now it's tough to be one of these middle-class programs in college football. But I keep coming back to one, eventually I think there's going to be some parameters around NIL and the transfer portal and transfer windows and things like that. There just has to be eventually. But you've got to be able to, you got to do the Brad Pitt, the Billy Bean Moneyball thing, right? You have to adapt or die. You've got to be able to rearrange your depth chart almost essentially on the fly. You've got to be able to retool this thing year to year. You got to be able to roll with the punches, roll with the changes, and they might not be changes that we like, but if you don't embrace them, if you just dig your feet into the ground, you're going to get further left behind. And I continue to say this too. For every program like WVU and Pitt that gets poached by USC and Georgia, okay, there's G5 schools out there that those players would love the opportunity to come to the Power 5. There's FCS schools out there that have dudes that can play. Heck, I think in the top 40 of the NFL draft, there were just 3 or 4 FCS players chosen in the top 40 of the NFL draft this past weekend. Go get those guys. Go tamper with them. Kill or be killed, right? It's that same conversation. It sucks, but that's where you're at now. You got to be able to adapt or die. You got to be able to roll with the punches and roll with the changes, or else you're going to get left behind. It's sad, but it's just the truth for now. I don't like what it's become, but I'm also not running from reality. How about a big welcome back to Emmitt Matthews? Oh, wait, I got to do my dream conference. Hey, we'll do Emmitt Matthews first. Who cares? I gotta go football, basketball, back and forth. Emmitt Matthews pulling a David Sills, huh? Morgantown, left Morgantown, back to Morgantown. Great to have him back. He seems excited. The fan base is excited. And I tell you what, the Coliseum, the roof is going to blow off that place when he comes back. Let's just hope if he has a good game against Baylor, those scenes would be incredible. Certainly going to be a fun storyline to watch throughout the season. But welcome back, Emmitt, and we're certainly excited to have you back in the fold, cousin. Let's go win some games, dang it. Okay, I said I got some of your tweets here, some of your DMs that I want to get to before we close this thing out. But there was a tweet actually sent by a Pitt fan earlier this week that picked up some traction that went semi-viral, right? Just asking basically, build your dream conference for college athletics. And so I got to thinking about this, right? Here's what I got for you. I'm going 16 teams because I think that's the future wave too. These years of, 10-team conferences, 12-team conferences, eventually they're all going to be 14 and 16 teams as these things continue to consolidate. So here's what I got. I'll do this alphabetical order for you. 16-team conference. Let's call it prestige worldwide, even though they're all pretty much on the East Coast. Boston College, Cincinnati, Kentucky, Louisville, Maryland, Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt, Syracuse, Tennessee, UNC, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and of course, West Virginia University. That's my 16. We'll play the conference championship game in basketball at the Garden. I've been thinking about where to play the conference championship game for football because I think Philly would be a cool location, kind of in the middle of all those schools to do it. For those of you that haven't been to Lincoln Financial Field where the Eagles play, it's a really cool stadium and a really cool area. You could have really cool tailgating and everything. Like everything's kind of in South Philly in one area. It's a fun place to attend games. Boston College, Cincinnati, Kentucky, Louisville. Maryland and Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt, Syracuse, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and WVU. The only one that I kind of question is Boston College. Maybe Temple instead. Maybe Rutgers instead. Maybe Duke instead. But Clemson instead? I don't know, but I still, because Boston College stinks. I mean, their football program has been irrelevant since Matt Ryan was there 15 years ago. But I still think it would be fun to have a Northeast program in a big city. You're not really, Syracuse is New York, but it's not New York City. And Boston College is in Boston. It's a fun city. It'd be a fun place to go visit for road trips. There's obviously shared history there. But those are my 16. One more time. BC, Cincinnati, Kentucky, Louisville, Maryland, Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt, Syracuse, Tennessee, UNC, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and WVU. Conference championship game in Philly, although I tell you what, Philly in early December, you could have some bad weather for that, but that could also be a lot of fun. Definitely playing the conference basketball championship game at the Garden. So that's what I got. That's my dream conference. Like I said, second guessing maybe Boston College a little bit, but other than that, I like what I got. Bring Cincinnati back, get into Kentucky and Louisville, get Tennessee in there, get North Carolina in there, both Virginia schools, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt and Syracuse for the old Big East shenanigans. That's it. That's my dream conference. Let me know yours. All right, I got some tweets to get to here from you guys before we get out of here. Chad tweets us, at Eers and Beers on Twitter, by the way. Chad says, something I think is worthy of discussing on Eers and Beers, backyard brawl tailgating scenarios. Oh, you're speaking my language here, Mr. Chad. For example, myself and 13 of my friends are coming to the game for my bachelor party weekend. That's a great bachelor party idea, Chad. I love it. Do we just drink at the Airbnb? Do we go to Archie's, which you guys are always promoting as the big Mountaineer spot in Pittsburgh? Archie's is the Mountaineer spot in Pittsburgh, by the way. Or do we actually tailgate this shit like it's a Steelers game, as weird as it will feel, and take over Heinz Field? I think it's safe to assume we will outnumber Pitt fans, so maybe a massive outdoor planned tailgate is the move. Love the pod. Any suggestions are appreciated. Can't wait until September. Listen, Chad, if you're doing something like that, it's going to be you, and you're going to have 14 people there. You got to go to Heinz Field. Listen, Pitt's making it difficult for WVU fans to get tickets, to get parking passes. You got to buy season tickets. You got to make donations, all that stuff. On the day of the game, I don't think that's going to hold up. Pitt football just had their best season in 40 years, and they didn't sell out a single home game. Now, if this game was on a Saturday, I'd be singing a different tune. But it's on a Thursday night, on a holiday weekend where a lot of people travel. They go to their lake houses. They go to the beach. They go wherever for one last summer weekend. I think the game's going to sell out, but I don't think it's going to sell out as quickly as Pitt thinks it does with all these connotations that they're attaching. You want a parking pass to the Backyard Brawl? You got to buy season tickets. You want tickets to the Backyard Brawl? You got to buy season tickets. There's not enough Pitt fans for that to work. Or at least not enough ones that actually care to go to the games and, financially invest in the team. So what I would do if I were you is I would keep my eye on parking passes. Gold lot is the lot right by Heinz Field. That's the equivalent of our blue lot, right? Is the gold lot for them. If you could find a gold lot pass on a secondary market, like on StubHub or SeatGeek or something like that for a reasonable price, that would be a great idea. But there's also the good thing about Pittsburgh and the North Shore and around Heinz Field is that it's a lot like Morgantown in this sense. Like every piece of concrete, every parking lot on game days gets turned into tailgating, gets turned into parking. So you'll be able to find, even if you wait till the day of the game, there'll be somewhere that you can park for $30, $40, and just throw down with your boys. That's what I would do if I were you guys. And then we all go to Archie's afterwards to celebrate. Or we all go to Archie's on Friday or Saturday to celebrate. That's what I think. If you're doing bachelor party, if you've got a crew that large, I think you got to get a parking pass and go down there on the North Shore and get down there in the afternoon and just throw down all day and walk right into the game. I think that's how you got to do it. Hell, Chad, and shoot me an invite, shoot me your location. I'll swing by because that sounds like a good time now that I'm laying it out here. Let's see. Here we go. Ooh, this is a long one from our buddy DRP tweets and says, Wes, I just listened to a couple of your most recent podcasts. The question I have is, when is enough enough? I have had enough. I'm done with college football and basketball. It's overwhelmingly sad, but a long time coming. The corruption and money has overrun what made it great, and it is no longer in any way what it was. I'm a 42-year-old Mountaineer fan dating back to Signetti, Catlett, Nealon, Rich Rod, Beeline, Huggs, Stu, Dana, and Neil Brown. Many highs and lows, but I never foresaw this happening, as has happened with the insanity of basketball, professional basketball, pro football, NASCAR, money, corruption, and politics ruining everything. I tune those off. I will tune this off. Sadly, I will miss your podcast. I have really enjoyed it. I simply cannot put up with this money perverting what is left of college basketball and football. It is money, not the portal itself, driving this madness. That and these self-centered kids. Nobody anywhere gives two shits about them or their brand. Many have accomplished nothing. NIL is nothing but paying them bribes. Man, DRP, airing it all out here. NIL should be about nothing but sports-related goods, activities, and products. Anything more is overly corrupt and bribing the best kids to play for the best programs who get the biggest cut of the money in the conferences, etc. They can have it. 5 teams can play. The other 10 teams, good for them. I'm done. Very sad, but I'm also relieved. Whatever this has become, I am 100% not interested. Best to you guys, and good luck to everyone who rides it out. DRP, you're not the only one who feels that way. I'll start by saying that to you. We've had this conversation on the podcast about how there's a lot more programs like WVU that are getting hurt by this than programs like USC and Miami who are benefiting from this. But I don't think it's going to be this rampant, this wild forever. Like I said, eventually something is going to have to give. There's going to have to be transfer windows, where there's a month here and a month there where players can enter the portal, and that's it. There's going to have to be regulations with NIL. There certainly is. And with tampering and with the portal and all that, because there's bigger programs that are upset about this too. I mean, Oklahoma just had Caleb Williams, their quarterback, and some other guys poached by Lincoln Riley. Georgia just stole a wide receiver from Alabama. So this is happening more to the WVUs and the Pitts of the world, but there is some blue blood on blue blood crime going on as well, too. And make no mistake about that, when Oklahoma bitches to the NCAA, it means a lot more than when Pitt does, right? I mean, that's just simple physics. Everybody knows that. So I understand where you're at. And particularly, 40-some years, like you mentioned. I get it. College athletics is changing. I've stated here before, I'm going to love WVU forever. Football, basketball, I'm going to love WVU forever. Everything in between, too, but those are obviously the two big ones. I'm going to be a season ticket holder forever. I mean, you never know. Something could happen with work or with whatever. I could end up moving somewhere where I'm not in driving. I'm 80 minutes away from Mountaineer Field. It's pretty easy for me to get there 6 times in the fall on Saturdays. But I'm also, maybe my thought process in that changes as I get older too. But that's what it comes back to me, DRP. The love of what I was raised on in college football is gone. But it wasn't just NIL and the portal that have done that. Make no mistake about that. Conference realignment is what really did that for me. It started with Miami and Virginia Tech leaving, and Boston College and Pitt and Syracuse, and now we play in the Big 12 conference, right, where we're the only flipping school in our time zone in a conference. Our closest conference opponent is over 700 miles away. That's what, college athletics were never supposed to be that. And I'm not naive. I realize we live in a capitalistic society and money rules all. I get that. It's all about the money and making as much as you can. But WVU shouldn't be in the Big 12. Nebraska shouldn't be in the Big 10. Colorado shouldn't be in the Pac-12. Texas A&M should be playing Texas. Missouri should be playing Kansas. And the lists go on and on and on. And I think the playoff has bastardized college football too. I know that that's not a popular take, but now nothing matters except for the playoff. No one really cares if you win your conference. No one really cares if you win a major bowl game. If you weren't in the playoff, your season didn't matter. And that's BS. That's not what college football was ever supposed to be about. My favorite thing about college football was when I was growing up, WVU could have a good season and Notre Dame could have a good season, and those two things look differently. Because our expectations aren't the same as Notre Dame's. They shouldn't be the same as Notre Dame's. Our expectations shouldn't be the same as Alabama's or Ohio State's. But when I was growing up, if WVU went 10-2 and we beat Pitt, we beat Virginia Tech, we won the conference, we won a BCS bowl, that was a damn good year. But now you do that and it doesn't matter because you're not in the playoff. So conference realignment, the playoff, certainly NIL and the transfer portal, a lot of these things have changed the game. They've changed the sport. They've changed the landscape of college athletics. But what I keep coming back to is I love WVU, man. I've said this before on the podcast. I mean it. Some of my earliest memories in life are being 6, 7 years old, throwing the football around in the blue lot with my grandpa, with my uncles. And I'm not going to let that be taken from me. I've said this before, too. I don't care if we play in the Big 12, the ACC, the Big 10, the Big Sky, the Big Slapdick Conference. I love WVU. I'm going to be there on Saturdays. It's not the same. I'm not going to lie to you there either. It's not the same playing Texas Tech and Kansas State as it is playing Pitt and Syracuse. It's not the same. But I still love WVU. And so if you're struggling with the sport and how much it's changed, I completely get that. But what I would say to you, I think the one thing I can say is don't let all that ruin your love of the Mountaineers. If you love the Mountaineers, you love the Mountaineers. Nothing should change that, can change that. You can be pissed off about the landscape around it, as I am too, as we're all jaded by it. But I think you still got that love for the old gold and blue. Although, DRP, you did say you were tuning out the podcast, so I don't know if you'll hear this answer. But I'll tweet you back and tell you that I answered it. How about that? Last one here. Mountaineer Messiah tweets and says, on your next podcast, you should talk about how it took so long for Josh Chandler-Semedo to find a new home. NIL deals weren't coming, I bet. Look how fast, Messidor went to Miami. Do you think if Adai wanted Josh, he would have talked to him? I guess Miami and others thought he wasn't good enough. You're from Ohio and you go to Colorado. If it was a program like Oregon or USC, I could respect it more. Here's what I think happened, honestly. And I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast. I don't think JCS was going to be this nailed-on first team, playing every snap starter that a lot of us thought he was this year. the defense, they've had a lot of guys emerge on that unit, a lot of guys who I think were going to take snaps away from JCS. I think that's a real thing. That's what I'm hearing from people connected to the program. I sung Lee Koba's praises here on the last podcast, and I think he's going to be a beast. So originally, and I was there too, I understand the frustration and the animosity and the anger about Josh Chandler-Semedo. He wrote this 4-paragraph essay to Mountaineer Nation talking about how I'm coming back for one more year. I love it here. Country roads. Let's go. And then a month later, he entered the transfer portal. And it seemed like there was some tampering there. It seemed like, one of those where there's smoke, there's fire type things. Maybe it was, though, just as simple as him looking at it over that month and saying, hey, last year I was the guy. Last year I played just about every single snap on defense. But that might not be the case this year. I think there's just as good a chance as that happened as saying, he thought that he was going to have an offer from some bigger program and he had to settle for Colorado. I really do think that this defense is moving in a better direction. And so all the best to JCS. He ends up at Colorado. I wish him well. I hope it works out for him. I hope he has a really good year. And like I said, I think in hindsight now, that one is certainly a little different than Daryl Porter, than Akeem Messidor, than Tyke Smith, than some of these other situations that we've had. There's a lot of people around the program that are saying he just wasn't going to play the pure amount of snaps that he was going to play last year. And maybe that's more so the reason why. Maybe he deserves a little benefit of the doubt in that regard. So that's all I got for today. Oh, wait, before I go, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm wearing an Eers and Beers shirt, baby. Oh, yeah, look at that. Nice and pretty, nice and sexy. We got Eers and Beers shirts. Here we go. We got Eers and Beers stickers. And check this out. Hold on. Oh, Eers and Beers snapbacks, baby. Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, it's beautiful with the new era hat, the new era snapbacks. So we gave away a few shirts and hats and stuff at the spring game. If you were lucky enough to come see us and get a shirt, a hat, some stickers, we'll do some more giveaways maybe throughout the summer and certainly once we get to football season. I'll have a whole heap of shirts and hats, backyard brawl, home games, all that stuff. So there's a look for you. And we'll be doing some giveaways of shirts and hats and stickers and all that stuff. So keep your eyes and ears right here. That'll do it for episode 58. Before we go, yes, I think we can put this one to rest. Your starting quarterback, September 1st, at Heinz Field, against those stinking Pitt Panthers, will be J.T. Daniels. And here's to you, J.T. Daniels. Morgantown loves you more than you will know. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm Wesley Uhler. Thanks for listening to this episode of Eers and Beers. Find us on YouTube. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to you soon. Let's go, Mountaineers. Let's go drink some beers.